Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing the conversation on ships from literature. And first of all, thank you so much to the sponsors. This one is for you. I mentioned this book before when we were discussing Patrick O'Brien's naval fiction. This actually predates the Jack Aubrey series. It is The Golden Ocean, and it is about the voyage of George Anson, future Lord Anson, and also future First Lord, Sea Lord of the Admiralty. So an important person. Anson was one of the most capable naval officers, an innovator in many ways, a reformer, who had enormous contribution to the development of the Navy. In fact, the Navy that Nelson and his predecessors used to such great effect was created by Anson. So Anson is a very important, very inspiring figure. Lord Anson is known as one of the very few people who circumnavigated the world at the time. At the head of a squadron that, by the end of the voyage, his great force was limited to one ship in fairly bad condition and about 150 men surviving out of the nearly 400 that the ship ought to have had aboard. For his vessel was a 60-gun fourth-rate ship of the line, and it should have had more than 400 people aboard. Of all the expedition, no more than 150 were left alive by the time he fought his most famous or most rewarding action. He has one other. He did fight a fleet action in which he was victorious. But what people usually remember him for is the capture of the Manila galleon with all the treasure in the world. I believe it was a few hundred carts that were necessary to carry the treasure when he returned to England from the ship to the Tower of London. Needless to say, neither he nor his officers nor most of his crew ever suffered from any financial needs to the end of their days after that. It was one of the very few truly successful actions of this kind. Many officers had tried to capture, to intercept the Spanish treasure ships, but there are very few people who actually succeeded. As far as the Manila-Acapulco galleon, there are only 3 people that had succeeded in this capture. That in the Pacific, Drake captured a Spanish treasure fleet ship. After him, it was Sir Thomas Cavendish, only a few years after Drake himself, in the 16th century. And from the 1580s until the War for the Austrian Succession, that is to say the 1740s, no one else did. So Anson was the next one to do it. And as far as only too fallible memory serves me, I believe he was the last one to do it too. So as you see, a great officer, a great seaman, a great human being, venerated by his midshipmen, officers, and the men that served under him. Furthermore, and more surprising perhaps, he actually was deeply respected by his enemies. Not only for his bravery, not only for his success in battle, but also for his gentility. He was a gentleman. His basic humanity, in an age not particularly well known for humanity, impressed deeply the Spaniards. And that would serve very well those English officers of Anson's squadron that fell into their hands subsequently. So here is The Golden Ocean. How would I rate the book in comparison with the O'Brien famous series of Jack Aubrey and Stephen Maturin? It is not up there, no question about it. It is highly entertaining. It has the typical, sharp, wonderful sensitive sense of humor that is characteristic of O'Brien, but the characters are a little bit more sketchy than O'Brien. And after all, this is, what, 300 odd pages? Not even 300, actually. 285, in case you were wondering, in which to develop what characters the way that he developed them in 21 volumes. Obviously, it's not gonna happen, but it is highly entertaining, and the whole action of this book happens aboard the Centurion. Now, what do we know about the Centurion as a ship? Actually, surprisingly lot. First of all, she belongs to the establishments. She was built to the 1619 establishment. She dates to the 1630s. So it was a fairly new ship at the time when she sailed with Anson on the circumnavigation of the world. Carried 60 guns, lower deck 24-pounders, upper deck 12-pounders, plus of course the inevitable 9 and 6-pounders on the quarter deck and the forecastle. Fourth rate ship of less than 1,000 tons burden. Again, burden and displacement are two completely different things. I have been beating this into the heads of my students the whole semester long, and actually they, I think, actually have a pretty good grasp of the difference between the two nowadays. Yet another side comment here in sidebar on my part. We have actually two models surviving of Centurion that I'm aware of. There may be more, there may actually be three. And one of them is a block model, and John Franklin published it in his Navy Board models book. By block model, it is meant that it is carved to the accurate shape of the vessel, but it is made of solid wood, and all the detail is painted onto the wood. It is characteristic of the early Georgian period in the Navy. They may be simple, but they do have their charm. And that one is in the collection of the National Maritime Museum, which currently is named Royal Maritime Museum. No doubt the name will change again before I'm dead and buried. The other model, again in the same collection, is more conventional, Georgian style model. The hull is planked. It is, in fact, probably the lower part of the hull, I imagine, is characteristic of the period, is carved, and the upper parts are built up. But at any rate, it is not displaying framing patterns. It is a complete and rigged model of the vessel. Although for the rigging, I'm not 100% sure that it was not added by the likes of Anderson or one of the other collectors of the late 19th, early 20th centuries, who donated their collections to create the National Maritime Museum. At the times when that museum was interested in research, was interested in preserving cultural heritage, rather than being a shrine to Lord Nelson on the one hand side and to little screaming children on the other hand side, with absolutely no attempt to teach them anything whatsoever except the sounds of the ocean. Not that I have anything against them the museum or anything, but returning to the subject, recently a viewer of our channels at the Battleship New Jersey actually talked to Ole and me about this model, and evidently a kit is being developed of the Anson. I would dearly love to see a model of this ship rather than yet another victory, yet another Constitution, yet another bounty. The list goes on, and I think that I have discussed it in time enough, repeated myself so many times in different videos that I will leave this subject for a different time to return to. So by all means, look into the history of the Anson, read The Golden Ocean. It is very, very entertaining read, and it has all the typical Patrick O'Brien characteristics that we all love, using real ships, real events, and to some extent real characters, slightly adjusting and putting words and making a beautiful novel out of a highly adventurous period in a story that if it was completely made up, you would say, oh, right, you really are overdoing. No one can believe such a story. And yet, this is the beauty of archival research. You see again and again and again things happening that if they were fiction, everybody would say, oh, that's over the top. This cannot possibly happen in real life. And yet, it did. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for your time, for your sponsorship, for watching the videos. I wish you a most wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.